with anything creative, I would say you can't try. Okay. Like, I mean, you try, obviously, there's effort, but it's like you can't try to get into that state. You can't try to force it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to let you. The best like songs that I think most people would say this are the ones where they just like came out of nothing. Like I would say sometimes that to lead up to the days where you're in that flow state, you have to go through days where it's not happening. You have to force those days. It's always like some weird way you never expected, and you have to just trust that whatever you're doing, it's gonna work out in that way. Like I don't only do I love making music, like I have to. Like I said, like if I go a week without making music, I start to feel angsty. The finish line, I'd say, is always moving, and it will continue to move. Like there'll always be like another goal, and I think it would suck if I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I've done everything, and then what? You know, because then it's like, what do you wake up for the next day then? You know.
Welcome back to Super Rise Podcast, aka the #1 podcast in Winnipeg, where we document the rise, stardom of Winnipeg's talent and personalities. I'm going to be doing a lot of that today.
But this time it's going to come off like this.
This time. We got a guest today. A lot of guests today and tomorrow, whatever. You're going to be seeing him in the future. But we got a good one today.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to catch him before he goes onto the stage and does his set. Please welcome to the stage and also the podcast, Fahjah.
Thank you.
Fahiah Maharaih.
The Maharaja, the king. The king, right?
Exactly.
I have to ask, because you're going on to the stage, right? What are you feeling, man? Are you excited? Are you nervous? What's going through your mind?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I think, though, I think that my nerves have, like, I don't really get as nervous anymore before, like, going on doing sets and stuff.
Right.
But it's probably just excitement, not really nerves anymore.
Mm-hmm. What was that first feeling like when you went on the stage, right? Like, man, you were playing your first ever set?
Yeah, I think my first ever set would have been at Opera, like right before it closed, and I actually didn't really know how to like DJ yet. Like I had John Skeen. He was like trying to teach me, like as my first set's going, he's trying to teach me, and it was pure nerves. I was like, it was pure nerves. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. So it's definitely a lot different than it is right now.
How'd you get into this DJ scene?
So I guess I kind of got into it because of my brother a little bit. So I think I listened to the episode that you guys had with him, and like he was talking about how he used to DJ and produce and stuff. And so when he was doing his productions and stuff, I kind of saw what he was doing, and like I'd been making music for years. When I was like 5 or 4 years old, I said I wanted to be in a band. And so when I saw this, I was like, I always felt attracted to it. I'm like, oh, this is like a different format for me to make music without having to need a whole crew of people, you know, a whole band or whatever. And so, you know, I ended up deciding to like, I asked my parents for like a program for Christmas. I started in high school. They got me this program. They were like hesitant because they were like, they wanted me to become a doctor or whatever.
Yep.
And so, you know how it is.
A music doctor.
Yeah. So I got this program for Christmas, and then basically my grades tanked. So that's how it started.
And I'm sure convincing your parents, because you know we have the immigrant parents like set roots, like engineer, doctor, lawyer. And if you're ever just something off that, they're like, oh. What was the process like of how like convincing them? Were they kind of like on board right away, or were they kind of hesitant?
So they were 100% hesitant, and like I remember at one point they were told me like you're not allowed to make music on weekdays, because I would stay up till like 2 a.m. like, and I have to get up for school like 5 hours later, and I'd just be working on music and stuff. And they were like, they noticed my grades in grade 12, like I dropped, like I used to be like 90s, and then all of a sudden I started going to the 70s and stuff. And so I kept up with it, but eventually like I remember one of the first moments where my parents started becoming like, okay, maybe we should give this a chance. Like my dad was like at Earl's on the patio with one buddy, and then he was actually with Panda, like House of Panda, before he was House of Panda, and they were complimenting me, and my dad was like, okay, maybe he has something, and like Nick was like extremely supportive, like giving me a lot of backing, and so they're like, okay, we're gonna give him a shot, and so they ended up like, you know, really backing me, and they still really back me. So it was kind of like a bit of a slow evolution, but like support from family, friends, and like showing them like I'd tell them like different milestones I'd hit, and then they would be like, okay, all right, we'll give this a shot.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate, like even sometimes ourselves as well, right? Like you're following your dream, and your parents have another sort of road that they want to do, and that's a hard and sometimes lonely journey, right?
Oh yeah, big time, especially because like almost my entire like Trinidadian side of the family, they're like all like a doctor, a lawyer, like pretty much all of them.
Sure.
And then like my two oldest brothers have like, you know, one's an engineer, one's as like finances. So like it was just Nick and me. And I'm like, so I felt like the black sheep a lot for sure. And you're like, people are kind of wondering like, oh, what is it that you do? And you're like, well, I make music. And they're like, what is that? Like, what do you mean? You know? And so that's definitely like a tough thing to deal with, especially like, you know, when I would tell my grandparents about it and stuff, they'd be like, what? Like, maybe you should go to school or something.
Because they've never seen that, right?
No.
Like, it's a foreign nature for them.
Yeah, but to my shock, like I remember the last time I saw my grandma, she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Making music." And she's like, and I expected her to like tear into me, and she's like, "Do you love it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "That's all that matters." And I was like,
Nice.
"Whoa!" I'm like, "That's not what I expected."
She's bumping your tracks in the back.
Yeah.
So what was that journey like, starting to learn music and then producing it? Like, I know maybe Nick helped you a lot as well, you know, because he used to produce, but.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I feel like I kind of fucked up in some ways because, like, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother.
Summer of sound, my friend.
It's summer of sound. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you're the DJ, man. You're playing. You take the shots.
You
here,
tell
right?
us what to do.
Yeah, I feel like I messed up a bit because, like, the first couple years, or like 3 years even, I just did not do tutorials. I did not do, like, a lot of people would dive into resources. I'm like, nah, I just want to do it my own way. I was kind of arrogant a little bit with that. But I found like one mentor who helped me along the way. He goes by Gray now. He's a really successful artist. I don't talk to him anymore, unfortunately, but he helped kind of put that mindset in me where you're just like super self-critical and like making sure I'm holding myself to high standards. So he helped me. And then like another point, I found like another mentor and like style of music. It was really like a progression of finding mentors that would guide me. And, you know, a lot of like, obviously people would do tutorials online, like we watch YouTube videos and stuff like that. It was really like this crazy journey of, I guess, self-discovery, I would say. Yeah.
When you look back at your first songs, do you cringe a little? Is it like...
Yeah, I definitely cringed a little, but I feel like it wasn't as bad though as you might think. But I definitely cringed a little bit.
Yeah, no, especially making I've had some experience making music, and the first songs are not the greatest.
No.
I look back, I'm like, don't even play them.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Like I probably made a couple, like I probably made like several hundred songs since I started, and it's a crazy progression. But yeah, the early ones definitely make you like.
Yeah, I know. I can relate.
What was that journey like, that self-discovery journey of finding like, okay, maybe school's not the right choice for me, and then instead of going right, what everyone goes, and you chose to go left?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Pretty crazy. And to be honest, I feel like I didn't fully feel it until a couple of years ago, because now I'm at the age where I'm like, oh, my friends are like getting, you know, regular jobs, proper jobs or whatever.
Getting married.
Yeah, getting married, like some having kids
everywhere.
and stuff, right? So that's when it really started to hit. And you know, the thing is, like, you have to, like, it's tough, and like I think everyone falls to it where they feel kind of like, shit, maybe I'm not doing the right thing, and like you really just have to stick to what it is that you love and like have complete faith in what it is that you're doing, because it's super easy to give up. And you know, lucky for me, like. Lucky and unlucky, I'd say I have like an obsession, and like if I go a week without making music, I start to get like angsty. So like even if I wanted to stop, I couldn't, because I will bother me. And so it made it easy for me to kind of stick to what it is that I'm doing with that.
What's your process now in terms of how often you're making music, and are you in the studio 12 hours a day just grinding it out? Like, what's the...
Yeah, you know, I think when I first started, it was like make as much as you can nonstop, but like, no, it's actually important to give yourself breaks. And it, you know, I kind of learned this a bit when studying a bit of like Zen Buddhism and stuff, that you kind of have to time these like flow states and these points. You have to, like, I can sense when I know I'm gonna have a good creative day, or when it's coming, and then I will time it, and then I'll go to like my computer and then start working. Because if I try to force anything, it's just not gonna happen, and it's so much healthier for yourself, and you make better quality music too with it as well. So. Yeah.
When we had Nick on, he talked about astral projecting.
Yeah.
And like he's able to astral project. Is there a moment like where you're sitting down and even like
is that part of
do you force that flow stage to occur, or is it just natural?
You can't really force it, and it never comes in the same way ever. It's just kind of like a thing that's you kind of have to learn how to step out of your own way, I would say. And the way I would think of it is like when you're actually in that flow state, it's like there's no one there. Like your sense of self is just gone, and you're just completely engaged in what you're doing. And there's ways to kind of get into that, but it's always different every time. And it's just kind of like it's a mind game really is what it is. You have to learn how to time that. And it's also a body game too. You have to make sure your body feels good, exercise, eat well, and like you have to set yourself up to get into that zone, I would say. Yeah.
I mean, if you're sometimes like, I don't know if this is the same, but if I'm trying to fall asleep and I think about falling asleep, it's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to get into the flow state and you're thinking about it, is that similar?
Yeah, no, exact same thing. You can't, with anything creative, I would say you can't try. Okay. Like, I mean, you try, obviously, there's effort, but it's like you can't try to get into that state. You can't try to force it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to let you. And even if you do get something, like the best like songs, and I think most people would say this, are the ones where they just like came out of nothing. Like a lot of the biggest tracks, let me think. I can't remember which Diplo song it was. I remember he was talking about how there's one banger of his that like came in like 6 hours or something. Like it's always the stuff where you're like, oh, it just happened.
Yeah.
That's always the best like moments. And that's not even just in music. I think in life, it's always the stuff where you don't really have to try. It just happens. Those are the best experiences.
Do you ever have to like force yourself to try though? Like, sometimes it comes down to like actual discipline or something. Like if you want to stick to a habit, you have to like kind of force yourself to stick to it. Have you ever been in the studio where you're like, man, today's not the day, but I'm just going to grind it out and see what happens? Yeah,
I would say there's definitely moments like that. And when you're doing more of the grunt work, then you have to force yourself. And sometimes, like, I would say sometimes that to lead up to the days where you're in that flow state, you have to go through days where it's not happening. You have to force those days. But you have to recognize when you step away on those shitty days, that's just part of the process, and that good day is coming when you're gonna be in the zone. So
yeah, but they all pay off, right? Like some of it, like I was looking through your streams, and you got millions of streams on Spotify. Like what is that feeling, right? Like that's a milestone in itself, and that kind of validates your idea that hey, I can do this.
Right? Yeah, it's super cool, but in this way, it doesn't really faze me or excite me as much anymore, because I feel like I'm always focused on what it is that I'm trying to get next, or what it is that I'm aiming for next. So once I've done that thing, I'm like, oh, that's awesome, excited to tell people or whatever, but it doesn't like probably get me going the way you would think. Just because I'm focused on whatever the next goal is, I would say.
Did it at the beginning though? At the beginning when the first song took off, like?
Oh yeah, I think when I had like my first song got 1,000 plays on SoundCloud, I think I was pumped. Yeah.
But now when you get like millions of streams, it's like doesn't do anything.
No, I mean it's really dope for sure. And obviously if I go out another song today that hit 1 million, I'd be like, oh, amazing. But probably by the next day, I'd be like, oh, well, on to the next thing.
So what are you chasing? What are you chasing now?
It's a funny thing. So I think there's like some goals I have in terms of labels I want to hit and stuff, but I think the thing that I'm trying to focus on the most right now is being authentic, being myself in my music, and making my own path for that. Because the thing I notice about like a lot of the guys that are outside of just EDM or electronic music, like the guys where are most notable, they didn't necessarily follow like a linear path. They like stuck with what it is that they're doing with their sound and just paved their way. And you have to be open to like whatever that however that's going to work out. You can't, I had always come up with like, oh, maybe like this is what's going to happen. This is the thing that's going to make me succeed. But it's never like that. It's always like some weird way you never expected. And you have to just trust that whatever you're doing, it's going to work out in that way. So,
I mean, EDM is such a niche like music genre. Was there ever like a struggle where like, maybe you didn't get that million streams right away and you were like, hey man, I'm not cut out for this or anything?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, like sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not for this, but like, that's just part of the bad days and stuff. and you have to go back to like why it is that you're doing it. You know, like I actually I don't only do I love making music, like I have to, like I said, like if I go a week without making music, I start to feel angsty. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I need to go back and make music. So, you know, on those days where I'm like, maybe this isn't for me, I'm like, that doesn't even matter. I'm like, I have to do it. You know, I'll always do it, even if I don't succeed, even if I'm not, you know, touring the world or something, you know, I'm still going to do it. So,
cause you love doing it.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
That's what you know, you have a passion for it.
Yeah.
And many of the guys who are up at the top, they have the similar mindset, right? They're going to do it no matter what.
Yeah.
Who are some of the people that you look up to in terms of seeing yourself in or take inspiration from?
You know, in terms of musical inspiration right now, it's going to sound arrogant, but there's not a ton of people that necessarily I've been drawing direct inspiration from. You know, like I have a lot of buddies, like a Panda inspires me and stuff. And there's like a random artist where I'm like, oh, this song's cool, this is inspiring, but not one specific artist at the moment. But there's artists where I look up to them in terms of like what it is they're doing as a whole. Mm-hmm. Like I really admire how Skrillex just makes literally anything he wants. He'll jump into any world. He's made pop, he's made hard EDM, he's made, you know, just everything. Like I really admire that, and that's what I want to do going forward. I really want to just, like, I don't ever want to just make electronic music. I eventually would love if I could produce and write pop music for somebody, or, you know, I've actually produced hip hop tracks before for people. I would love to do that as well, like anything in that world. I've done a bit of soca as well, like anything like that would be cool.
Do you draw, like, a lot of artists, even musical artists, they make music from their personal experiences, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that's somewhat related to EDM, or EDM is just more of a creative, like, whatever kind of flows, it flows?
No, I think you could actually, it could be both, I would say. Mm-hmm. Definitely both. There's definitely a lot of artists I can think of where like they've put their heart and soul and like a story into their music, and then you know, there's some where it's just club bangers and stuff. Like it's a mix. It depends, like, you know, it depends on the artist, depends on the style. And you know, I'd say I've done a bit of both as well. Like it's cool to do both. I would say neither are better than the other. It's just cool to do both. Yeah.
Are you making things that you want your audience, your listeners to enjoy, or are you doing what you enjoy?
Or yeah, I
definitely mix of both.
Yeah, I definitely keep in mind like what I think they would enjoy, but ultimately you have to make sure you enjoy it the most. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, like, there was a point when I was just trying to make what I thought people would like. Yeah. And it's probably like the most miserable I was in music, I would say. And like I was just doing what was successful. Like I remember I had accidentally, you know, I had made a random track that I signed to Armada, which is like Armin van Buuren's label. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh, this did really well. I'm like, I guess I'll keep making this style. And then I was like, along like a year or two into it, I was like, wait, why am I doing this? I'm like, I don't even fully enjoy it. Yeah. So now I'm just making what it is that I actually like. And you have to really do that. Otherwise you're going to be, you know, there's guys where they're like, oh man, how did I get down this path? Like, I don't want to stick to this, you know?
Mm-hmm. What's the end goal? Like, when can you say that, like, okay, I've worked hard enough to know that I'm like, not chasing the next step? Like, is it a world tour, or is it like
the finish line? I'd say is always moving, and it will continue to move. Like, there'll always be like another goal, and I think it would suck if I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I've done everything, and then what? You know, because then it's like, what do you wake up for the next day then? You know, but you know, I don't know what will happen in the future, but I know that there'll always be like a next thing that I want to do, a next kind of goal to achieve, and you know, I have a ton of goals. And some shooting for the absolute stars, obviously. Of
course, why not?
But yeah, there will always be a sort of next goal.
If you can say, what are those goals?
Nick didn't want to say his either.
Yeah, I could say mine. No, I'd like to play, like, there's a few key festivals. Like, I'd like to play like EDC. There's a few key labels I'd like to sign to, like Spinnin' Records. Mm-hmm. I would like to tour on like a regular basis to see what that would be like. I think I probably won't be for it, but I would like to see.
Tour life's different. Not that I know of, but
yeah,
it just seems really hectic.
Oh yeah, it's killer on some people. Like, it's really, really hard on some people. So
I want to ask, what's like one moment in your career, or like a certain period of time that you really thought, hey, I'm here and I'm gonna do this, or something that you just thought was like, I cannot believe I'm here right now.
Yeah. Let me think. something maybe in like maybe like mid last year or something. Like I got asked to do 2 remixes for Bob Marley.
Ooh.
For I was like, it's going to be in like his documentary series through Universal, and I was like, that's crazy. Cause I was like, I used to play like Bob Marley or whatever for like, or sorry, my dad used to play Bob Marley for me when I was a kid. Like, and then I played him like this. I had a Jammin' remix and then No Woman No Cry remix, and I played them for him, and he's dancing to them. So I'm like, it's funny how that comes like full circle.
Yeah.
So that was like a pretty surreal moment, I guess. Yeah.
Are there any crazy stories? Like, I know you just shared the Bob Marley one, or sorry, yeah. Are there any crazy stories, even when you were in the darkest times or the highest of times, where this was the life? Like, you're living every kid's dream. You know, they think they grow up to be like, oh, I want to be a rock star. I want to have that rock star life. What is that like?
You got the look for it. I'll give you that.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Like, to be honest, I don't feel like I'm actually there yet. There's still like a lot more that I feel I need to do and want to do. But you know, there's obviously moments where I'm like, oh, this is really dope. Like, it's really cool. You know, if somebody plays your song at a big festival, or you know, somebody massive is supporting it, it's like really cool. Especially when, you know, I look back and think about how I would have reacted to it when I was younger, when I first started. So yeah, I don't know.
Is it weird to know that some, like, now there's kids looking at you and being like, the way that you looked at the other inspirations before, there's going to be people, and there probably are people that look up to you now?
Yeah, actually, it is kind of cool. That actually happened recently. There's like this one kid who's a local producer, and he kind of reminded me a lot of when I was like first started. So I try to be really friendly with him, and like I told him, like, keep sending me music, give him feedback and stuff. And it's kind of cool to see that, because I remember being in his place and wanting to, you know, wanting help, wanting somebody to bounce ideas off of, wanting support and stuff. So try to offer that back. I think like probably a few years ago I was maybe a bit more arrogant in that sense and wasn't that person, but I definitely want to be that person to support people that were once in my place.
The reason I ask is because we also come to some sort of realization, like, you know, if we were in grade 9 and someone was like, hey, you want to hop on a podcast? Or we wanted to go on a podcast, we would be like, damn, this would be sick.
Yeah.
And so I was curious to see if it was the same as music, right?
Yeah.
Like offering that back to the community, and it helps you as well, right? It feels good. It feels nice. As far as going world tour and things like that, what's your plan? Like, I know that's a very direct question, but like, what is your plan? But
I mean, I have like a stupid amount of music in my bank right now, especially from throughout COVID. And right now I'm just trying to line up releases, and I'm figuring out where exactly it is that I fit, I would say, because a lot of the stuff I'm doing is not necessarily, I wouldn't say there's anybody else doing it. I'm making a lot of like, I'm making like a more modern version of Eurodance, which is like something that I was listening to when I was a kid, and so there's not really a specific label that's going off of this, so I have to kind of carve my own way and be prepared to kind of take a leap of faith with that. So right now, like the thing I'm focusing on is just figuring out where it is that I fit with all this stuff. You know, reaching out to a lot of artists, different labels, and you know, I'm getting really good feedback from a lot of people that are like, oh, I love this nostalgia, and some. There's like a few labels that have supported me, like a Space Yacht in LA. They're like a really dope. Massive, they throw a lot of events in the States, in LA, and they like supported like 3 of my tunes. They released it as an EP, and so it's really cool to see that. So I'm just focusing on more of these like labels that are like trying to grow upcoming talent and are open to new sounds. So that's a little bit what I'm looking at for my next steps, I would say.
Do you have like a set routine before you go on and stage and do your sets? Like, I know a lot of athletes before they go on the field, they like, oh, I got to put the right shoe on first and the right sock on.
Yeah.
Is there like, do you like meditate or something or before going on, or what's?
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I actually have a ritual anymore. I mean, I think when I was like, 4 years ago, I would usually have like a beer or like a shot or something.
Yeah.
It just gets you loose. But now I'm just like, not so much anymore. Now I just try to focus on having like a clear mindset and just being like present with it, and not worrying too much, I guess. Yeah.
I guess kind of along the line is like, do you have a plan to go in? Like, okay, this song goes on, next song, or like, is it just like whatever you're feeling, whatever the crowd's feeling that day?
Yeah, so typically for like clubs and most rave gigs, like I just try to wing it, I would say, and feel it out, see what I can play. I'll sometimes have like a general bit of an idea, but not specific. Today I prepared like there's a certain set of songs that I need to play. There's all my own music today. So I was like, I wanted to make sure I can like have a proper showcase for that. So yeah.
What about being on the stage, right? Seeing thousands of people just, yeah. What is that feeling like?
Yeah, you know,
adrenaline going through the roof. Like, I don't know. What's it feeling like?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few there. I guess actually the last time that would have happened would have been when Panda brought me on for a set together again. And he played one of my tunes that I'd released. That was really cool. I was like, it was just cool to see everyone like bouncing to it. Yeah. And that was probably the biggest crowd I'd been in front. That's for Together Again. Yeah, it feels awesome. Yeah.
Was there ever like, you know, when, for example, like stand-up comedy, you throw a joke out there and like no one reacts?
Yeah.
Have you ever had those moments where like you're like, oh, this is my best song, I'm gonna play it, and no one's dancing?
It's definitely happened at club gigs before, where you're like, this will either destroy the dance floor or everyone's just gonna hate it. Like, yeah.
And how do you
like risky?
How do you bounce back from those situations?
You have to play a song that you know people are gonna love for sure. There's like, I remember, I can't remember, it was either Skiing or Tech G that had taught me this, but it was like, there's like a formula where you play a song that you know everyone's gonna love, and then you play a song that you think people will like, and then you play like a song that is a little weirder, that's maybe something new to introduce people, and then you just keep going in that kind of rotation, and that usually works for cycling the dance floor and keeping people on, but also interesting as well. Yeah.
So we're here at Summer of Sound, and you're going on as soon as the event opens, very soon. In terms of, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, right? You're going on stage. Are you planned for the worst, or are you planning for what if something happens?
I've had so many dreams where like I'm like playing a show and then I can't get the song to play, or like it goes on to emergency loop, which is really awkward, or like, you know, it's just like those dreams, you know, when you're like trying to fight someone in a dream, you just can't. That's what I feel, but it's DJing though instead, and I just can't select the song. I can't find the right music. I'm like, oh no, like where's the next track? I don't know what to play. The song's about to end. Like I've definitely, those are like some nightmares for sure. And that's some, wait, what was the question again?
Is that going to happen today?
Oh no, I hope not. No, it's not going to happen. Yeah. No, we're prepared.
Okay. As far as mentally, like, you've done Summer Sound event before?
Yeah. I think 3 times. I think so.
So you're a veteran. You know what you're doing.
I think this year's cool because I think the sets are a little bit longer. This time, like, and there had been times in the past where like it was like 5-minute sets. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play one song. But yeah, no, so it's cool. I'm excited for that. Yeah.
What other fan interactions like? Has anyone ever like tried to run up on stage and like
give you money?
Never on stage. I've had people stroke my hair, which is interesting. I used to have like longer hair, and somebody would come up to me, not on stage, but like I'd be walking around and they come like
pretty enticing
with their hand in my hair. I'm like, whoa. I'm like,
you are
way too high to be touching me right now.
Do you welcome that? Do you want people randomly touching you?
I mean, no, but like I'm not like pissed off about it. You know, I don't really get mad about that unless they were like really obnoxious about it. But no, people are usually pretty nice. So.
You mentioned Panda.
Yeah.
And he's going to have an episode as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to be before or after, but
what's
your relationship like with him and developing, you know, that friendly competition and, you know, going from there?
Yeah. So actually, I guess the first time I met him was the first time I ever DJ'd. Would have been like 2014. I just graduated. And yeah, I'd known him for several years, I guess, through like clubbing and stuff. And then eventually he started getting more serious about producing. And then we kind of became a lot closer through that. We'd bounce like songs to each other all the time, like what do you think of this, like feedback and things. And now like, you know, he inspired me a lot to take the jump away from the old style of music I was making, because I loved like what he was doing, and I also loved that he was just doing something different and taking like a total leap of faith, because like nobody was making speed outs at the time, and labels weren't necessarily open to it. And so I was like, I didn't like what I was making, and so I was like, I'm gonna start experimenting too. I messed around with a bit of the sound he was doing, and then brought it back into my own way with making it more melodic. And so he's like a really good friend. I would say I like inspired by him a lot. And he's a homie. Like we always, grab food together all the time, play video games and stuff.
Do you guys push each other to make better music?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Like, we always send stuff to each other and like, it's like how can you, what can you do to make this better? And I think we're always pretty honest with each other about that. And also it's also really cool to have somebody like him, like, in the city and like close to me. Cause like, I don't compare myself, but it's good to have somebody where you're like, they're doing something really cool and they're working really hard and you can kind of like, I guess in a sense compare, but like you can use them as motivation, and inspiration to want to do more. And that I think that's been overall really good for me to have somebody like that. Cause it's like, he's also shown me that like, there's actually like more that you can do than you think. And there's more possibilities, more things you can do with music. And stuff that I wouldn't have considered. So it's been overall great to have him.
Yeah. What's the future looking like in terms of this summer sound that you're about to play your set, or even any future festivals you have coming up?
Are you releasing music today, like brand new stuff?
No, I actually released one last week.
Okay.
I have let's see, Pen and I got a collab dropping as part of his EP on a really dope label. Yellow. Actually, I don't think I can say that yet.
We'll bleep it.
Yeah, this might come out in 2 months, so you should be fine.
Okay. Well, I'll just leave it for now.
Yeah.
I don't know if he wants me to say it or not. So that's coming. I have a EP. Actually, I sang on both tracks. Coming on like Disco Fries' label. There's those Bob Marley remixes. There's like I have just ton of stuff coming. I need to release my bank because a lot of it's never coming out now because it's just been stacking too long.
How many songs you got in your bank? You'd say your vault.
Probably like 40 to 50.
Okay.
And I think a lot of them just won't see the light of day.
Yeah.
A lot of them won't.
How do you choose? How do you choose which one comes out and which one doesn't?
Kind of bounce it off the labels. Also, whatever I like, bounce it off friends. And then also just whatever I think, matches what I'm doing creatively right now. Cause there's stuff where I'm like, this was me 3 years ago. I'm not putting it out, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any advice you can give to the listeners out there that want to start making music or DJ?
I would say, make sure that you love what you're doing, stick to what it is that you're doing. Don't worry too much about the noise. And also, try to do something new and different. Cause I think if you get caught up doing what it is the next person's doing at some point, you will realize that you don't really have an identity. And that sucks as an artist, I would say. And also it puts kind of a shelf life on yourself. So I think do that.
Is there anything you want to leave the audience with? I know you gave some great advice. You're going to go on stage shortly, and hopefully we can catch you right after as well to see the before and after, say a couple words. But anything you want to leave the audience with right now before they see your set or...
Buy Unity underwear?
Yeah. Let's go.
Nice.
I don't know. Yeah.
You a shareholder?
No, I got no shares.
I'm going to talk to him right now.
We'll bring him on.
Yeah. I guess listen to the next episode with Nick and I. Yeah.
It's coming.
All right.
I'm sure it'll be a weird one. So, yeah.
All right. If you haven't already, make sure to check out Fahjah. We'll tag everything in the description below. We're live every Tuesday morning at 11:30 a.m. on the UMFM radio station.
Oh, can I do one plug?
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So I'll be DJing Wednesdays at the Village starting this summer. You want to come out? And then Fridays at Obsidian Lounge. So make sure to come for that.
Izzy man.
Check it out. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Everything will be in the description below. Peace.
Thank you.